Hi again, everyone. I'm olliemathews. This is Societal Narcissism. This video is sponsored by contribution from Ladies of Liberty. Ladies of Liberty gives a monthly contribution I'm going to use for this video. So, a lot of talk in the news and out there about the theft problems, the stores that are closing, the shoplifting problems, on and on. Anybody who's followed my channel, you guys know my background. There's this article that just hit in the Atlantic. Atlantic is a left-wing publication. I didn't read the entire thing. I kind of tried to skip through a few parts, but I feel I got to read through the entire thing. It is long. I mean, I saw a couple red flags and a few of the things I read when I first read it. So I figure I'll start the day with this. Shoplifters gone wild. They pop the locks, they melt the glass, they take keys out of employees' hands, which is a little bit beyond shoplifting at that point. The splendor of the American big box store lay before me with its endless variety of shaving products in every imaginable size and color. A retail extravaganza. All of it locked behind plexiglass. I needed a razor, and in order to obtain one at my neighborhood Target, I had to press a red button to summon a store clerk. Depending on where you live, you may know the drill. I waited in aisle B54 with two women, one in front of the Dove deodorants, the other in the Old Spice section. I keep pushing, but no one comes, said the Old Spice lady. 6 minutes passed. I pressed my button. My fellow shoppers pressed theirs. The Dove woman let out a dramatic sigh and left. Was a clean shave really worth all this? I looked at Old Spice. We shook our heads and departed. The result, three paying customers sacrificed to the war on shoplifting. Honestly, razor blades is something that was always locked up. So now the reason you're waiting on the razor blades is because everything else is locked up, or because these stores are grossly understaffed. Yes, they have huge shoplifting problems now, huge, and I'm sure we're gonna get into all of that. The reason is the reason is you didn't get your razor blades is because they didn't have the staff there, because they're not staffing the store. They wanted to lock everything down and put it behind glass instead of actually tackling the problem. And by tackling the problem, I mean physically apprehending these shoplifters. You have to do it. They have to. They must. And you do not want the police inside your stores making shoplifting apprehensions. That's not what they're there for. It isn't. Razor blades have been locked up since the 80s. Razor blades have been locked up since I started loss prevention I started working at ShopRite Supermarket in 1987. Razor blades were behind the courtesy counter. You couldn't get your hands on them. It's been like that. See, and I went into this in another video, okay? What's going on here is a store incompetence problem being masked by a theft problem. And I said, the same CEOs who have been running these companies into the ground since the 80s have been playing musical chairs with each other's company. So the guy from Sears screws up Sears, he moves to Macy's, Macy's moves to Penny's, Penny's moves to Dick's, Dick's moves to who knows where, and they've all been running these companies long before COVID, long before any of this. Oh, these box retailers have been losing money. They have been understaffing their stores. They have been playing fast and loose with all of their security standards, and they were being warned of this, that eventually all this was going to come to a head. Boom, 2020 rolls around, you have the perfect power, and here we go. Not saying they're not getting looted. They are. But they could stop it if they wanted to. They don't. Why? Because they want their golden parachutes. They want their plausible deniability when it all goes bankrupt and it all goes belly up. Okay, and they could say, oh, it's not my fault. We were robbed in society and it was all the theft. And but here's my $70 million golden parachute. Here's my $200 million golden parachute. I get it. That's all this is. That's all that's going on. Razor blades being locked up is nothing new. The lack of staff is. That's been going on, getting worse and worse and worse since the 80s. By definition, most shoplifting is petty plunder. Candy bars, baby formula, lipstick. Here's the Atlantic minimizing it, okay? You know how expensive baby formula is? Even in the, like, when I was we're buying it for Aaron, it was what, 21 bucks a case? When I was working loss prevention for ShopRite, I mean, we get $1,000 cases, people walking out with baby formula. It wasn't petty plunder. It wasn't. And nobody was stealing it, by the way. Nobody was stealing it to feed their baby. They were stealing it to sell it to go smoke crack. That's what was going on in the 80s and 90s. That's exactly what was going on. So this idea that it's the mother stealing the baby formula for their kid, no, never. The starving mothers at the supermarkets, the starving mothers, somehow we're always stealing not the baby formula, the filet mignon, the candy bars, and the lipstick, but those were the starving mothers, not the baby formula, though. But the small stuff adds up, of course, and it does, as demonstrated by viral videos showing shelves of deodorant or cold medicine swiped in to hefty bags by thieves who can't be bothered to run away. And again, the idea that they think deodorant and cold medicine is petty, it's expensive. You see what deodorant costs. Okay, cold medicine has to be extra protected. Why? Because it gets turned into methamphetamine. They don't even understand the problem. They don't even understand the problem. Okay, you have cold medicine would be a HABA theft, health and beauty aid, as opposed to what you're dealing with, a retail theft in, a box retailer, a Macy's, a Penny's, a Dick's Sporting Goods. The cold medicine's getting stolen so it can be turned into drugs, not to be sold. Dealing with a completely different type of thief there. You're dealing with somebody you gotta fight at the door, because those are tweakers. Those are people trying to get out. Same with the ones who are stealing like Advils, Tylenols. That's like, you gotta understand. You gotta know your thief. You gotta know your shoplifter. That's part of the art of this game. It seems like it's completely lost. And as per usual, security will they're trying to put something on security that is on the CEOs running these companies into the ground. And that's exactly when they go belly up and they go bankrupt, they're going to blame the theft. And it isn't the theft. If you go and you look back through their history, they've been losing money for nearly 3 decades. Some people contend that all the noise about shoplifting reflects mainly a race-tinged social panic. But the retail industry is not locking up its goods, annoying its customers, and closing stores because of a few viral videos. Companies are doing it because they're seeing their goods walk out the door, costing them billions. Big corporate retailers, mom and pop shops, cops, prosecutors, and lawmakers have tried everything to stop the thefts. Get tough, be gentle, invest in new surveillance technology, turn pharmacies into fortress. Nothing seems to work because you're not arresting them. They need, see, and people are going to say, you know, Ollie, mom and pop shops can't afford a security force like a mall, like a Macy's, like a Target, like a Walmart. Yes, correct. Absolutely. But the thieves are going to get caught at the large retailers. The large retailers will wipe out the majority of the thieves that are killing the mom and pop shops right now too, that are killing the large box retailers. That's how that works. It's a trickle down. It's the same thieves. And once there's that attitude is out there, the word gets out there on the street, like, don't F around in Macy's, don't F around in Nordstrom, they're going to come, they're going to chase you, and then they're going to hold you till the cops come. And then if the cops don't come, they're going to trespass you. They'll go down and sign the charges themselves. And even if you don't show up, they'll let the bench warrant come. And eventually, somehow, some way, it comes back to bite them. The only way to stop it is to empower the stores. And they can. They just don't want to right now. And the other reason they'll say is they don't want to get sued. And that is a part of it. Because the lawfare on that end happens every day. And to be very honest, I was surprised Macy's allowed a hands-on policy for as long as they did. And they still do. From what I see on the internet, even on the West Coast, I see them still physically restraining shoplifters. So they still do. But a lot of these stores, they want to go hands off and call the cops. And that is the worst thing. That is the worst thing you could do. At my Target in Washington, D.C., I counted 21 aisles of goods locked behind plastic, including toothpaste, body wash, underwear, earbuds, and air fresheners. All items that impulse thieves and organized criminals alike find desirable and easiest to sell on the street or more often these days online. Who's taking all of this stuff, and why has this old age nuisance crime become so prevalent? People steal because it's easy, with rare exceptions, free of consequences. David Kimmel, who resides at North Point Training Center, a former state mental hospital repurposed as a medium security prison in Boyle County, Kentucky, is one of those exceptions. Kimmel is on his fourth tour in prison for shoplifting, for stealing $12.88 doll from Walmart and $142.68 worth of ammunition from a Rural King store. All right, stop. He stole live ammunition, okay? He stole live ammunition. It's a little beyond, again, that's something beyond shoplifting. The $12.88, and depending on, like, why would they write this like that? Like, it's kind of a big deal that it was the live ammunition he's stealing. Fourth tour, probably, okay, becomes a felony. Because once you're trespassing, you get caught again. They tell you if you get caught again, it's a felony. So it doesn't matter. And that's how you get a lot of these thieves off the street. That's why I said in another video about this, getting upset over a state raising the minimum amount for a felony. Don't worry about that, because it's not so much the amount that gets you. Okay, it's the recidivism. It's the guy who keeps coming in 4 times, 5 times, 20 times, 30 times. And we had guys that we caught over and over, used to catch over and over again until we put the trespass law was passed under Giuliani. And once you were caught and trespassed, you were caught again, felony, 3 to 5, gone. Gone. And that was a store catching 3,000 shoplifters a year at that time. Just our store. Every one of those retailers was catching in the thousands. You think about how many grand larcenies we got off the street, that we cleared off the street. That's why it's a big part of why New York got cleaned up, is the retailers catching so many shoplifters and being able to hit them then with a felony burglary charge for them violating a trespass. It wiped out a whole slew of thieves for the better part of 2 decades. Gone. That's how you do it. That's how you do it. It's not rocket science. It isn't. You have to make the apprehension. You have to let these people know it isn't going to be easy. And yeah, you might get out one day, you might get out 2 days, you might get out 3 days, but there's going to be a day it catches up to you. And when it does, we had you on video running out of 3 days. We know what you took. Okay. You're still responsible for all of it. Oh, you don't want to be responsible for all of it? Well, who are your friends? Oh, okay, so now, that's their name, huh? Real name, real address. That's how it works. That's how it used to work. I don't want to go for all of it. Well, you don't know who you were running out the door with. You don't know where they are. Oh, well, I know. I ain't going on. Okay. Yeah. They don't snitch. No snitching, right? Okay. Okay. Believe that. Believe that. This time, Kimmel faced a Kentucky prosecutor and jury who seemed determined to send a message. Each of Kimmel's 2 charges was bumped up from misdemeanor with a 90-day maximum sentence to felony carrying and up to a 5-year penalty, mainly because he had already been banned from the stores for shoplifting. Exactly. That is exactly the law that I'm talking about. Several previous instances of stealing from that Walmart, Kimmel told me, and one prior instance stealing a lawnmower from the Rural King. The jury didn't even think that was enough, so they increased each sentence to 10 years. Finally, the jury recommended Kimmel serve the 2 sentences not concurrently but consecutively for a grand total of 4 decades. And that just goes to show you, nobody likes thieves. Nobody likes thieves. Once it's put in front of you, all this person does is steal and manipulate for a living. And if he's going to steal from a Walmart and steal from a Macy's or steal from a Rural King, he's going to steal from you too. It's not the amount. This is what I'm trying to tell you. They want you to get all upset. The Hannitys, the Hannity boomer wants you to get all upset because, California raised it to a felony, $1,000 for a felony for theft. Oh, can you believe this? As they're showing people running out of Louis Vuitton with armloads with $6,000 worth of merchandise. That law doesn't even apply to them. But they want you to rage bait over it. It's the recidivism. It's the guy who doesn't stop, who keeps coming over and over and over again. Those are the ones you got to take out. These gangs rushing the door, that could be stopped with door guards and undercovers. You don't got to catch them all. You just got to catch a few. You don't got to catch them all. You just got to catch a few. And you'll see how many names and addresses they give up. Very easy. Very simple. And once they know a bunch of them are getting caught, it stops. It stops cold. Once my crew, or like my VP who brought me in the Herald Square, and we had our crew and he got everything. Once we established in that bill, you ain't getting away with hitting the doors like this. These grab and runs, they're nothing new. Every mall, every retailer has dealt with grab and runs like that. Okay, the convenience stores, stuff like that, that's a little different. But seeing groups of people come in, grabbing merchandise and running is not new to retail. It isn't. What is new is seeing security stand there and watch them. That's new. That's new. Them coming in and running, grabbing merchandise, and running out is not new. Seeing more of it happen because you've done nothing about it, seeing it increase, is nothing new. Happened was going on in the 80s. It's when New York City was like, before Giuliani took over. It was out of control. Because not only was the city out of control, NYPD wouldn't arrest any shoplifters. Any shoplifters. We'd arrest them, and because we had SPOs, special patrolmen, we type up the arrest form. So we technically arrest them, but we couldn't transport them down to central booking. NYPD has to do that because they have to put it into the database, into the system. Well, they don't want to do that. Well, they used to not want to do that. So in the 80s, what they would do is they would issue them a DAT, a desk appearance ticket, and then the shoplifter and the thief, they would walk out and never show up to court, and it would be on and on. And that's why the city was the way it was in the 70s and 80s. That's the other thing. Giuliani ended the DAT, the desk appearance tickets. What's going on here is nothing new. All of this was what was happening in the 70s and 80s and early 90s. All of it. Kimmel steals, he told me, because he's a drug addict, pain pills usually, or heroin, and fentanyl. He's 39 now, has been shoplifting since he was 15. I've done it hundreds of times, he said. During all those years, he was mostly employed, painting houses, doing construction. I could make a living, pay rent and electric, he said. I couldn't afford drugs. He sold the stolen items at half their retail price to fences in nearby parking lots or on Facebook. He knows it's not right, but you ain't hurting nobody, he told me. And there it is. You ain't hurting nobody. It's just from a big company. If he were back on the street now as an addict, he figures he'd still be shoplifting. And that's the thing with a thief. They can rationalize anything. They really can. Kimmel appealed his conviction, and last year, the Supreme Court of Kentucky agreed that he should not have to serve his sentences consecutively. He told me his prison time was eventually cut back to 20 years. 20 years, 40 years. The consecutively was pretty tough. I mean, wow. 40 years for doing without violence. I mean, if he was with violence, I would be like, yeah, give him the 40 years. But the original sentence reflects how fed up many Americans are with shoplifting. At a rally last fall, Donald Trump announced that if he's reelected, we will immediately stop all of the pillaging and theft. Very simply, if you rob a store, you can fully expect to be shot as you're leaving the store. Shot. At another rally last month, he said he could end shoplifting immediately with one really violent day, a really rough, nasty day, or maybe even one rough hour, during which police could take on criminals. Both times, the crowds cheered. Again, this isn't the police's job. It's the store's job. It's the store's job. I understand the sentiment. I really do. And as a Trump supporter, I do. But you don't need to go that far. What you need is You need to give the stores the ability to make these apprehensions. You got to give them the ability, okay, to avoid the lawfare that comes from these freaking lawyers. Whereas on the right, see the rise in shoplifting as proof of a nationwide moral collapse, many on the left deny it's even happening or that it's a meaningful problem. Shoplifting is one of the hardest crimes to measure because only a tiny proportion of cases are ever reported to police. Thefts aren't increasing in every city. In some, reported thefts have gone down, and viral videos of shoplifters gone wild don't necessarily add up to a crime wave. Right, because they're not reported because the police aren't coming. So it doesn't get reported as a theft. That's why it's going down, not because it isn't happening. But merchandise is disappearing off the shelves at such a high rate that stores have resorted to extreme measures to defend themselves, even at the risk of alienating paying customers. The surge, retailers and industries experts say, is real. This is, and I'm telling you, right, why would they alienate their own customers? Why wouldn't they have enough people on the floor, because they're only paying minimum wage anyway, to open up these case lines? Why isn't there security there? Like, to open, why? Because they want to fail. And they want to be able to blame it on the shoplifting. They could stop the shoplifting very easily. The amount of taxes that these stores pay to the cities, like Macy's and Bloomingdale's, and like, is astronomical. Do you really think if these stores didn't pitch a fit to the powers that be, and don't think that they can't get directly to the mayors and the governors? They absolutely can. Say, hey, this ain't happening. Police and prosecutors got to prosecute, and they would. They don't want to. Why? Because there's something else going on here. These box retailers, these pharmacies, they've been failing for a long time. And this is their golden ticket out. Shoplifting has soared over the past 3 years, according to a survey by Jack L. Hayes International, loss prevention consulting firm. Never heard of them. Of 26 big retail companies with collectively more than 22,000 stores, the study calculated the total retail losses due to theft to be $7.1 billion in 2022, up from $4.9 billion in 2019. Retailers say stores are closing because they can't make up their losses and because some employees are scared and don't want to work there anymore. When Mike Mershimer worked as a store detective in the 80s and 90s, the primary tools deployed against shoplifters were handcuffs, shame, and mockery. He'd see shoplifters swipe a belt or Air Jordans, and I'd grab them, throw them on the ground, and cuff them, he told me. Customers would ridicule the thief as Mershimer marched him out the door. I never saw those shoplifters again, he said. So wait a minute here. So you're jumping somebody. They steal a pair of Jordans. You're jumping them, cuffing them, dragging them out, but you're not prosecuting them. And they don't come back. And that ain't the guy you should be jumping and cuffing then. That ain't the guy. Could have achieved the same thing with just apprehending that guy. Because the guy who would just be able to walk out is coming back again with two guys. Okay? For those Jordans. That's how that works. Clown. A clown. I know exactly the type you are. Oh, I'm not going to say his name, but it's a guy. We'll call him Rufo. And that's not his real name. That's not his name. We'll call it Rufoing. Like, oh, here he goes. There he goes. He's going to fucking cuff the 80-year-old woman who just stole an eyeliner. God damn it. And you wonder why, and then I get upset when sometimes the Paul Blarding of the industry. But you got guys like that. Today, Mershimer advises retailers and major brands on store security. Clients are looking for fixes, but though Mershimer can offer constructive advice, he's well aware there's no simple solution. I get a helpless pit in my stomach, he told me. I don't know what to tell them because you're an incompetent. How are you an expert and not know what to tell them? And they featured this guy in the Atlantic. I don't even know who he is. Like, who are you? L. Hayes Internet, like, who did you work for before you worked for L. Hayes International? A store detective in the 80s and 90s. That's a large leap before you're consulting 22,000, whatever I don't even know. I don't. Guards aren't the answer, he said. Yes, they are. Yeah, they're a big part of the answer, you fool. You fool. New engagement rules at many retail stores discourage police and security guards from using force to stop offenders. They can no longer grab and cuff shoplifters. They can. No, they can. They can no longer do it is because their stores, okay, the companies are putting restrictions on them because they don't want lawsuits. Okay, and this is what I'm talking about. Some chains, their lawyers, eager to avoid injuries to employees, have made even chasing down shoplifters a fireable offense. There was a fireable offense when I worked for Macy's too. Still happened. Had to happen. In recent video, capturing a shoplifter rolling a cart of stolen items out of a DC supermarket, a customer berates the guard for not chasing the thief. The guard replies, "I'm just a visual deterrent," a phrase now common in retail security industry. The criminals, Mershimer told me, see them for what they are, nothing. And that's what they are, exactly nothing. If you're not, so what are you advising then, bro? What are you advising? Unless somebody is on if these people are real, if I'm wrong about them just trying to run this into the ground, if I'm wrong and they want to fix this, they know how to fix this. It's with door guards and undercovers and tackling them to the ground when they don't want to come quietly and criminal trespassing and demanding the police show. And if the police don't show, going down to the police department yourself and filing the charges because you're the one signing them anyway. And if the prosecutor doesn't want to prosecute, having your own because and here's another, and that's another reason why you don't want everything to be a felony theft. In a lot of states like New Jersey and New York and several others, okay, you have municipal courts and you have superior courts. The municipal courts are usually the town courts. They handle misdemeanors, petty thefts, driving, DUIs, tickets, that stuff. Stuff you could get up to a year in jail for, which is fine. Which is fine for petty theft. So you don't clog the system. And you could prosecute your own shoplifting cases with your lawyer, yes. And Macy's, we used to have districts that didn't provide prosecutors for shoplifting, such as Rockaway. So you have your own lawyer go in and prosecute the case in front of the municipal court judge. That's how that works. You got to want to do it. See, California screwed up. I didn't know this. In 1998, California merged their municipal court system and their superior court system into one. So that's why everything goes to one court now. Everything's one mishmash, and nothing moves in the California judicial system. Some businesses try to look tough by dressing the guards in black tactical gear or equipping them with a German Shepherd or a handgun, but you're mainly intimidating your customers, he said. If I pull up in the parking lot, I see that, I'm pulling out. Nonsense. Macy's has had canines since the 40s. Malls were armed. Mall guards used to be armed up until the 80s into the 90s. The store detectives used to be armed up until the 90s. Mall security used to be armed up until the 80s and 90s. Most malls had operating canines. Macy's had an operating canine unit. You guy don't know what he's talking about. It's how you do it. See, yeah, you dress up a guy like G.I. Joe, that's one thing. You put a guy in a professional looking police, military style looking uniform, that's something else. Macy's uniforms used to look like exactly like New Jersey State Police, if you know what those look like. They were sharp. They were really sharp. Hardening the target, creating what the industry calls the fortress store, doesn't work either. Adding physical barriers and locking away products not only deters shoplifters, it deters legitimate customers, Mershimer said. Ditto for limiting the amount of stock placed on display. Mostly empty shelf is more of a turnoff to real customers than to thieves. Some stores have started locking their frozen doors, buzzing in only people who look like paying customers. But what does a paying customer look like? Door buzzers are invitations for discrimination lawsuits. Yet something has to be done, Mershimer told me. 20 years ago, if someone swiped a pair of Levi's, you can stand the loss. You budgeted 2% for shrink. Now you can't sustain these enormous losses. Now it's a whole shelf of Levi's. 20 years ago, 2024, 2%. Yeah, so that would have been right. So that would have been right. That should have been about 2%. That's what we're running. 2004 was 20 years ago. That's just mind blowing to me. A senior executive at a national chain store was equally frustrated. He spoke to me on the condition of anonymity because his bosses didn't want the debate over shoplifting to tarnish the company's brand. His stores lock up products even though they know it chases away paying customers, and it's an ineffective barrier against professionals. They pop the locks, they melt the glass, they take the keys out of employees' hands, he said. Right. So the only way to stop that is to physically stop them. That's it. That's the only way. I'm sorry, there's no magic way you're going to stop it unless you're going to physically stop it. But this guy's own bosses are telling them, don't. And you don't know why, because he doesn't understand that they're running the ship into the ground and they're going to blame him. They're going to blame the loss prevention executives. They're going to blame security. They're going to blame the theft. Well, it wasn't my fault. Where's my golden parachute? Sorry, all these retailers have gone out of business. Sorry, all these iconic American companies have gone out of business. Where's my golden parachute, though? And they'll get it. And you'll buy it. And they'll turn all those stores into some kind of Amazon distribution or Walmart distributions or whatever else. That's it. The Macy's name will never go away. It'll probably be a hyphenated and Macy's Amazon, Amazon Macy's, and the Amazon Thanksgiving Day Parade. It'll be something like that. Amazon pharmacies, Walmart pharmacy, whatever it is. You're seeing the consolidation go down. And they're going to blame the theft. It's not the theft. It's them. It's been them. It's been the same CEOs playing musical chairs with each other's companies, running each other's into the ground. Drunken sailors, drunken bumper boats just smashing into each other. Been going on for 30 years. In the early 2000s, many cities and states began easing the consequences for shoplifting. Dallas police stopped responding to calls about thefts under $50 in value. In 2014, California voters approved a referendum reclassifying thefts of items worth $950 or less as misdemeanors. That's fine. You still do a year in jail. I have no problem, and that's not a bad thing. It's not the worst thing in the world. You don't want every case going to Superior Court. You don't want every felony case. You don't want every case that's $1,000 going to Superior Court. You don't. Because not everyone's the same. It's not a bad thing. It's not so much the amount, it's the recidivism. It's the repeat offenders that are the problem. Now, the thefts under $50, there's very little in a box retailer that's less than $50. Like, they're probably talking about they're not going to go to candy or stuff like that and whatever. Still wrong, but if it's a repeat offender, there's always exceptions to the rules. And all that means is, listen, all that means is they're not going to respond and arrest them. That doesn't mean you can't go and press charges. You still can go and press charges the same way. No problem. So these laws are not what you necessarily think they are. They aren't. Now the clamor for safer stores is pushing the pendulum back toward enforcement. In the past few years, states such as Florida, North Carolina, and Louisiana have ratcheted up penalties, especially for people caught stealing in a group. Next month, yeah, that's called acting in concert, AIC. It's nothing new. Like Florida never was lax. You can't get away with that shit in Florida. You can't. Next month, Californians will vote on a referendum that would toughen penalties for shoplifting, essentially undoing the reforms voters just approved a decade ago. What they need to do in California is undo that law they passed in 98 and separate misdemeanor court from the Superior Court and get rid of the logjam. So when a mall sits in Pasadena, they go to a Pasadena court, a Pasadena judge, and it worked out. And then the town benefited because the fines all went to the town, and the town benefited, and everything worked. And like California, they just wanted that money. They just wanted all that money in the state coffers and less control over the boroughs and the districts. That's the most important thing that they do in California, because you still got to have that logjam in the California court system. Whether this will have an effect on thieves' behavior is unclear. Sean Hunter is 29 years old and racked up more than 40 criminal charges in D.C., plus additional charges in Maryland and Virginia. Earlier this year in a Target store in a wealthy section of D.C., two cops conducting a retail theft surveillance operation watched Hunter stuff $54 worth of items into his bag and leave without paying. The officer stopped him just outside the door. And is this what cops should be doing inside of a Target? Target has enough money and enough resources, and they have CCTV, they have DVR, I know they make apprehensions, and I know they cuff people. This isn't what the cops should be doing. This should be Target's responsibility. But no, now they're trying to make it the cops' responsibility to come in and work shoplifting cases that have been worked by retail. These type of cases have been worked by retailers for 120 years. Hunter did not respond to requests for an interview, but I sat behind him in May in D.C. Superior Court as he waited for his turn for a hearing. The judge called him to task for having missed a previous court date, but his lawyer explained that he had a good excuse. He failed to appear because he was in another courtroom on the same day answering to yet another theft charge. This is what I'm trying to tell you. It's not the amount. This guy's in for $54. It's not the amount. It's the recidivism. But they rage bait you. They Hannity boomer rage bait you with, oh my God, it's $950. It's a misdemeanor. It's so what? It's not a big deal. Hunter fidgeted through the hearing. The second he was dismissed, he jumped up, took the escalator 2 steps at a time, and burst out the courthouse with a yelp of regained freedom. Shoplifting is not a modern development. The term lifting dates back to a 1591 British pamphlet. In the years since, people have come up with plenty of theories about what drives shoplifters to steal. In Victorian Britain, shoplifting was seen predominantly as a female malady, malady. The opening of department stores caused a moral panic. Women with money and time to spare, London newspapers warned, were in danger of sullying their virtue and filling their days with petty crime. When Rachel Sheetier set out 2 decades ago to write a book on shoplifting, her idea was to plumb the roots of the early acts of apparent surge in retail thefts. She sold her book, The Steal, to her publisher on the back of a wave of attention devoted to the actor Winona Ryder, who had been caught taking, I remember this, they had her dead to right. They had her on CCTV popping security tags, popping Sensormatic tags with a scissor, who had been caught taking $5,500 of designer clothes and accessories from Saks Fifth Avenue in Beverly Hills. According to a witness, Ryder claimed to have been conducting research for a role as a kleptomaniac. Ryder's attorney denied this and suggested that the actor had assumed that Saks' clerk knew she had taken and would later charge her for the goods. There was a sense that the women were stealing not because they needed to eat, because they were shopping addicts. Shearer, now a professor at DePaul University, told me talking about shoplifting in those years often meant discussing mental health issues as a borderline personality disorder. And that's exactly what it is. Most of the women we caught shoplifting had the money. Like your suburban Karen. Oh my God. Like in the suburbs, you popping suburban Karen left and right. You popping Karen left and right, and it's all borderline personality disorder. They have a wallet full of credit cards. They have the store card. They have they have Amex Platinum. They have black cards. You name it, they got it. Sky Mile. And here they are stealing. Why? Borderline personality disorder. Main character syndrome. So what happens now in a society that is now has an epidemic of societal narcissism? And you got male and female borderlines running around and CEOs looking to run their companies into the ground. You have mass shoplifting, mass theft, mass what we're going on here. Beginning in the late 60s, especially after the publication of Abby Hoffman's Steal This Book, a different conception of shoplifters emerged, one that continues to dominate the intellectual and political left. In this view, oppressed people steal to assert their power in the face of society determined to keep them down. In the 2012 article, Stealing a Bag of Potato Chips and Other Crimes of Resistance, the sociologist Victor Rios argued that shoplifting was a reasonable act of defiance against a system that preemptively labeled young men of color as criminals. Stealing, he wrote, was a way of fighting for dignity. Look, I'm going to read on. The idea that the theft was both a reflection of social need and a form of political resistance became entrenched on the left after protests, and in some places, looting erupted around the country over the murder of George Floyd in 2020. Some commentators explicitly lump shoplifting in with looting as a justified expression of frustration and rage. Right. There's a difference between looting and shoplifting. Okay. And this 2012 book about, stealing and other crimes of resistance, okay, where they were trying to make it into a racial issue that it's, it was black men and black people are the targets of shoplift. No, they never were. Never were. And I've said this on nearly every shoplifting video I ever done. Every race, color, creed, gender, shoplifts. I've caught them all. However, each demographic, okay, and it's not 100%. It's not 100% in every category, okay, but the overwhelming majority steal and have certain patterns in when they steal, how they react to when they're caught stealing. You know why you don't think, you never see, you think you don't see white people or Asians or even some Latinos or Arabs or whoever being caught shoplifting? Do you know why? I'll tell you. Because by and large, when somebody gets caught shoplifting, they come along quietly. They come along quietly, and we're not making a big scene. They're not trying to make a big scene about it. Unfortunately, when stopping, it's different. And it's a resistance, and it's a fight, and it's yelling, and it's screaming, and it's histrionic. Not 100% of the time. And not that you haven't gotten that with other races and nationalities too. But the overriding majority, it is what it is. So that's where, like, you think you're only seeing one group of people getting caught shoplifting. But why are you seeing that person get caught shoplifting? Is it because security's jumping out and decking them and throwing them around and you piece of shit? Or is there screaming, yelling, fighting, carrying on? Okay, is that the only reason why you know that somebody's getting caught shoplifting? As Vicky Orsawell, the author in Defense of Looting, told NPR, looting freaks people out. But in terms of potential crimes that people could commit against the state, it's basically nonviolent. Oh, really? Really? You're mass shoplifting. Most stores are insured. No, they're not. No, most stores are self-insured. Macy's and everybody under the Macy's Inc. Federated is all self-insured. As far as I know, Walmart is self-insured. Target was self-insured. IKEA had Liberty Mutual. No, they're not self-insured. No, they're not insured. And what does that mean? Like, you think even in the ones who are so the insurance companies have to pay out. You don't think that affects everybody else's insurance rates? You don't think that affects everything else? Jesus. It's just hurting insurance companies at some level. Right, that's all it's hurting. It doesn't trickle down. It doesn't trickle down. It's just money. It's just property. It's not actually hurting any people. These people vote. These people vote. Vote early, everybody. Vote early. Early vote. Do not wait till election day. Early. Whenever your voting opens up, go and vote as early as possible in person. I got 3 days till I can vote. This is not a popular perspective in the retail industry. Those who have studied shoplifting point out that retail theft has always been more common than people think, and not primarily among the poor or those who view themselves as politically oppressed. Exactly. An estimated 1 in 11 Americans has shoplifted at least once. In one study, criminologists spent the spring of 2000 to the spring of 2001 monitoring surveillance video in a major national chain drugstore in Atlanta. They determined about 20,000 incidents of shoplifting took place in that one store, compared with only about 25,000 larceny theft cases reported to police in the entire city in 2021. Exactly. That goes to show you how much theft actually goes on under these rooftops. And the idea that anybody would have to frame anybody for shoplifting, like, it's everywhere. You don't need to. The The study used shoppers' clothing, jewelry, and other markers to draw conclusions about their economic class, providing a rough profile of who steals. The results: the shoplifters were not disproportionately minority male and lower class, as many experts assumed. In fact, about a third were middle class and nearly 40% were women, and white people were just as likely to steal as were black and Hispanic people. Exactly. The difference is how they steal. Are they more open about it? Listen, white people seem to do it a little bit more, conspicuously than black people. They're just throwing stuff into bags, into purses, and running towards the door. When you put up a fight at the door, it's going to cause a scene. You're going to know a shoplifter's being caught. Excuse me, I need to talk to you about the merchandise in your bag. I need you to come with me. Okay. And they walk back with you. You don't know that's going down. You don't know that happened. And that's what happens usually 9 times out of 10. That's what you're trying to deal with. And you never see that one. Because it's, excuse me, I need to talk to you about the merchandise in your bag you didn't pay for. Got to come with me back to my office, okay? Okay, let's go. That's it. That's it. You don't know about that because there's no scene. I didn't do nothing. You can't do that. That's brutality. I can't. And that's what the retailer is trying to avoid as well. But you can't avoid it. You can't avoid it. Because you can't capitulate. You can't appease that. If you let it out the door once, it's coming back. And it's coming back with friends. These days, industry analysts say they're seeing more middle-class shoplifters than they did pre-COVID, mainly because shoplifters think they won't face significant consequences, which is likely correct. Men might treat themselves to a home improvement tools and video game accessories. Women, many of whom are the primary shopper for their family, will pay for milk and eggs, but then swipe luxury items that are on a tight budget can't accommodate. High-end cosmetics, skincare products, and jewelry. They don't need any of it. Listen, this type of theft always existed and will always exist. It just will. Because people think they can get away with it. It's an impulse. It's impulse control. Retailers are also becoming more concerned about what is known as organized retail crime, which often involves ringleaders ordering up shopping lists of goods they've often already sold to customers online. The thefts are contracted out to professional boosters who rip off home goods, hardware, clothing, drugstore items from any point along the supply chain, including freight trains, delivery trucks, warehouses, and stores. No reliable statistics show what portion of overall thefts are initiated by organized rings, but estimates range from as little as 5% to half of all theft. The FBI would know that because the FBI has had an ORC, Organized Retail Crime Division, since the 90s. Anybody who's worked retail knows that. Anybody who's worked retail knows that. And the bottom line is the professional boosters are no different than any other shoplifter coming in and grabbing the merchandise and running. The only difference is they're using foil-lined bags and they're called a booster bag. It's the same thing. They're coming in, they're grabbing your merchandise, and they're trying to get to the door as fast as possible. You are either going to tackle them, apprehend them, and hold them there till the police get there, okay? Or the problem's going to continue. That is the only way to stop it. Coordination online has made organized theft more efficient, but it's a different kind of puzzle for law enforcement than far more common and more psychologically complicated individual shoplifting. No, it's not. It's just merchandise that's being shipped out to South America. That's it. You notice all these refugees It says so we got some of the best dressed refugees coming into this country because they're all wearing designer clothes. They're all wearing designer clothes and cell phones and iPhones. It's weird. It's very strange. Why is shoplifting surging now? The coronavirus pandemic and social media are the two factors often cited by researchers and industry executives. At the beginning of COVID spread, many categories of crime decreased because people mostly stayed at home and access to stores was limited. Shoplifting apprehensions reported by 22 major retail chains declined by 44% from 2019 to 2020, according to Jack L. Hayes consultants. But since then, the numbers have soared far beyond their pre-COVID levels, reflecting persistent inflation, less staff on sales floors, and thieves viewing shoplifting as high-risk, high-reward endeavor. Their survey concluded. Let me tell you something. The shoplifting numbers, since cities started putting in the criminal trespass laws and started cracking down on thefts in the 90s, okay, you were seeing ebbs and flows. It was cyclical with the shoplifting numbers. They'd go up and then they go down. And what they would usually track with was with the sentences of the people getting released from jail. And then when they would spike again, they get caught and boom, and then they go back down again. And they all get out and then they all go back down again. That's 1 year. That doesn't tell you anything. They got numbers. Listen, these numbers go back to the Jesus Christmas. Macy's numbers, they literally have logbooks that date back to the 1900s of shoplifters. That's how detailed this stuff. To analyze 1 year pre-COVID, like that's insane. It don't mean anything. There's a million other variables that could affect that number. Reed Hayes is a former store detective with scars to prove it. Back in the 90s, his hands were repeatedly cut by shoplifters' fingernails and pocket knives. These days, he runs the University of Florida Safer Places Labs, which develops and tests innovations in shoplifting prevention. He's busier than ever. He told me he'd seen surges before, but this is different, more significant, more widespread. But you're just building deterrence, and the problem is every deterrent can be defeated. It's good. It's good. It's not going to stop the problem. He said that everything changed with COVID, including how you think about other people. Everyone around you is a threat to your health and safety. Store employees grew less willing to confront thieves. Oh, what a crock. That's bullshit. And lifters felt free to ignore shopkeepers' efforts to halt them. People seemed quicker to go violent against clerks who did intervene. No, yeah, it was COVID. It wasn't the fact that the cops wouldn't show up and everything was getting looted and you were getting called a racist and everything else if you tried to stop somebody. It was COVID. Oh my, left-wing garbage. Left-wing garbage. Oh, where are we here? Man, this goes on. Jesus. All right, I'm already at an hour here. I thought I was going to be able to get through this whole thing. That's just like at that point. I mean, I think you see where this is going. I mean, I've hammered my point home on this. I don't think I really need to go much further. I mean, the bottom line is, guys, they could stop this problem if they wanted to. They really could. They just don't. This is with the theft that's going on is not worse than it was in the 80s, 70s, and 80s. What's different is they don't have the sales volume anymore. And now they're looking to pin this problem on their incompetence so that when they go belly up, they can all leave with their golden parachutes. That's what's going on. So I'm going to leave it there. I can't believe I've been going on. And I could go on about this for days. Like, I feel like I'm just warming up. But, like, it's already been an hour and 4 minutes. Jesus. So thank you if you're still with me after all this. I do appreciate it. And if anybody who's watching this, any real news reporter or anything, and believe me, there's people above my pay grade you can certainly talk to. But these guys running think tanks who are nothing more than store detectives, 40 years, like, I'm sorry. Like, I don't know where you're getting absurd. More than willing to answer any questions on this. More than willing. So, thank you to everybody watching. Again, if you want to get your story on the channel, if you have a topic you'd like me to cover, something you'd like to expose, you'd like to set up a Skype, a phone call, have a private video made, you'd like to sponsor a video like this for someone who needs help and can't afford it, or just make a contribution to the channel in general to keep it supported, growing, and successful, because this channel survives 100% on contributions from all of you. Without you guys, all this goes away. So if you like what you see here and you want to see more videos like this, you know what to do with either the Cash App, Zelle, PayPal, and email links in the description box below. Also, please like and share this video wherever you can. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't. And be sure to click the subscription bell to be notified of all my video uploads. Be sure to also subscribe to both my channels on Rumble. Follow me on Twitter and Telegram as well. I'm Ollie Matthews. This has been Societal Narcissism. Take care.